Talk louder. I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. We obviously know we need some change in our county, and it's what I call we the people. We're the voters. The courthouse is our office. The people that work in there work for us. If you don't like what they're doing, then we fire them. And we vote people in that will do what they're supposed to do. We need accountability. We need people that aren't corrupt. So we're going to came here today to listen to Barry Johnson, George Horsley, Mel. We need to know what's going on in our county, and I thank everybody that braved the cold. So if everybody will stand and uncover, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to bring up Pi from Sons of Liberty Riders. He's got a few comments, and then he will introduce Barry. Thank you.
First of all, let me thank everyone for braving the weather. We know it's icy out there, and summer's still on the road. So I appreciate you being here, making the effort to be here to hear this important meet and greet.
Bring the microphone closer. We can't hear you.
Bring it closer?
There you go. Now we can.
Okay. So, you guys, for 3 years now, all we've been asking is for fairness. We've been asking that the district attorney in McLennan County let the innocent go. That has fallen on deaf ears. But even today, Abel Rayner tries to vilify us. Veterans, bikers, people that may be a little bit different than your average voter. But make no doubt, we are voters. Right. And we have the right to listen to a candidate that's reaching out to us. Now, in all these 3 years, I don't know that Abel Rayner has reached out to any biker group or veterans group. I mean, has he? I don't see any hands going up. But it's good that we have a dialogue. It's good that we listen to the candidates. And right now, I want to introduce Barry Johnson, candidate for District Attorney, McLennan County.
Thank you so much for having me out here today. I am just delighted to be here as your candidate for your district attorney's office. And what Sandra said is exactly right. You all, along with the other citizens of McLennan County, you own that law firm down there. You own the law firm. And you all are the ones that hire the district attorney to run that law firm with an honesty and integrity. And I just want to thank you all so much for braving the cold and the sleet and the ice and coming out here today. I want to thank the commander of American Legion Post 121. Remember when my dad was campaigning here 30 years ago for district judge, we all came out here and several times in campaign, so I feel like I'm home. And I want to thank all of you veterans for everything that you've done. Mr. Smith and many of the others of you whom I've met and been able to visit with. I just want you to know that the reason we're able to be here and meet as free people are because of the many veterans, many of whom ride motorcycles on the weekends, because they went over and paid the ultimate price and put it right out there on the line so that all of us can live free, that we can have free elections, and that we can meet here together and say what we want to say without having to worry about somebody coming in and arresting everybody in here. Okay? So I want to thank you so much. I want to tell you that the American Legion has a real close place in my heart. My grandfather, on my mother's side, his name is Marshall Webb, is buried in the American Legion Cemetery down in Kerrville. When he came back from World War I, he had inhaled a bunch of mustard gas, and he and a bunch of other good veterans who had been over there laying it on the line so that we could enjoy this freedom we all enjoy. That's where they had to live, was at the American Legion Hospital in Kerrville, Texas. That's where they lived. And they all had mastoid surgery and did what they could do. We didn't have the drugs we have now, but ultimately they all died and are buried there in the American Legion Cemetery. And I've heard my mother talk about those times when she would be able to go down and see her dad at the American Legion in Kerrville, but she could only go, you know, ever so often when he was determined to not be contagious, which was not very often. But I've heard her tell a really tough story about when he did die in 1949, and she was 9 years old, and the honor guard coming over and giving her her dad's flag. So the American Legion is very close to our family and to our heart. And I just want to thank all of you all who are American Legion members and who are out here today, who have fought and given everything for our country, and even all the rest of the patriots that are here. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to give a shout out to my buddy Albert Stahl. Albert, look here. Albert Stahl. I was out putting up signs and beating those posts down early in the election, and at age 61, this probably shocked you all, but I threw my back out. So I was at home with a bad back, and I was like, how am I going to get these signs up? And Albert Stahl rode up in his pickup truck and said, we got you. You name what location you want these signs to be in, and they'll be up. And he and I have developed a great friendship, and I've told Albert Stahl, I said, if we can pull this, if we can win this election, which, by the way, we are going to win on March the 6th with your help. But I told Albert, I said, it's because you pulled up at my house many mornings at 8 o'clock and gotten those 8x8 signs and taken them all around this county. And we have had a great presence. And thank you, Albert. Appreciate it, man. I really appreciate all your help. I also want to thank Sandra Lynch, who is such a wonderful person. I went over to her house when the campaign first started because she had asked for a sign, and then 3 or 4 days later, she just said, where is my sign? You know, get yourself over here to my house and get my sign. And I went over to Mott and met she, and later met her husband, Mike. And Sandra Lynch, has, along with many of the others of you here in this room, but Sandra Lynch has jumped out there and given it her all. She's not one bit apprehensive about having to deal with Abel Reyna or any of his staff. She just said, hey, we're going to put signs up from A to Z and then put this event together today so that we can all meet here and visit. And let's give Sandra a hand. Sandra, I'm going to tell you first a little bit about myself, but I'm not going to go into a big, long, deep biography and bore you to death about that, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before I go in and lay out the case of why we must not elect Abel Reyna to another term as your district attorney. I've been practicing law since 1988. I was born and raised in Waco. I'm the 4th generation Wacoan. Grew up over in South Waco. In fact, where my house used to be is the HEB parking lot there on South Valley Mills Drive. We lived on 2024 Irving Lee Street for the first 12 years of my life, and it was the most fun that I've had growing up. We didn't have much, but as kids, we had it all because we could run outside and play and have a great time. I went to Kendrick Elementary, and that's where I met my wonderful campaign manager who has grabbed me by the nape of the neck since I came back to Waco, Texas a year ago and said, "You're running, and I'm going to run for you." The only problem I have with Miss Mary Perello Howard, stand up, Mary, that's my campaign manager, is that I can't keep up with her. She's got my days down in about hour increments, and my phone starts pinging at about 6:30 in the morning. And if we're able to pull this off, this is a lot because of Mary Ann Perello Howard, and that's where we met. She went to Alta Vista Elementary, I went to Kendrick Elementary, and that's where we met. And those of you that know Mary from back in those days know that every man that went to University Junior High and University High School is in love with Mary Perello, including me. So glad to have her on my campaign. She has been an activist and wonderful. When my dad, after he was elected to Justice of the Peace back in 1962, he ran against a lawyer. He was a non-lawyer, and he wasn't really supposed to be elected because we were from the other side of the tracks. But he was one of these musicians and played in all these halls around here, and everybody knew him because he was a good trumpet player. So anyway, he was elected and made the promise, "Hey, I'm going to go to law school if I get elected." I think he felt like it was kind of like a night school deal, you know, where he could kind of do it part-time. And he tells a story of, and that was like cold water going in his face when he was elected in May of '62 and started law school in June. And we didn't see him for 3 years, but he was able to get through his law school and pass the bar. And then was your Justice of the Peace here in McLennan County for 24 years. And a lot of you have told me in here, well, he married us. He married me, and he married most of the people in McLennan County at one time or another. So he stepped up to the district bench and won that bench when I told y'all he was campaigning in here in 1986. And remember Harold Strand band was playing in here. Y'all had a big dance going on, and we sat right over here. And my dad got up here with his trumpet and played with Harold Strand that night, and I think that's what elected him right there. Everybody just went, "Hey, how can you campaign against that?" But at any rate, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm real proud of my Waco roots. And growing up here, my grandfather had the first filling station in Waco, Texas, at 5th and Webster, and it was called Liberty Filling Station. Is what they called it. They had one gas pump and primarily fixed flats. But at any rate, we go way back here in Waco, and I love McLennan County, and I love this area. I just want you to know a couple of things. I am board certified as a courtroom lawyer. I am AV preeminent rated by Martindale Hubbell. I've been named super lawyer by Texas Monthly Magazine. I spent most of my time, a lot of my free time, mentoring young lawyers, and have done at least 10 to 20% of my cases have been pro bono for people who can't afford legal services. So at any rate, that's kind of where I am. I've got 3 kids. Their ages 23, 21, and 19. And just so y'all, I can answer the question that may be going through your mind. I didn't get married till I was 37, so that's why I've got those kids that are young right now. And all their friends, they think I'm their grandfather, but hey, I'll let that go. I'll let it go. So now that you know a little bit about me, I'm going to go on and go forward and lay out my case against Abel Reyna. And what I'm going to do is lay out this case as follows. This is what I call the people versus Abel Reyna. And you all get to be the jury. And I'm going to, you all, in a jury trial like this, you always start out with an opening statement. And this is my opening statement to you all. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, I intend to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that actions of District Attorney Abel Reyna after the Twin Peaks shootings have placed justice in jeopardy in McLennan County and could expose the taxpayers of McLennan County to millions of dollars of liability. I will further put forward that justice is for sale in McLennan County by Reyna dismissing or diverting criminal cases for friends and influential people in exchange for campaign donations. The Twin Peaks situation, as you all know that, and many of you have dealt with that in a very difficult situation, has been a disaster for Mr. Reyna and his department, and a disaster for McLennan County. When he went out there that day, he actually told friends that this case was going to make him famous and that he would be able to run for any office in the future that he wanted. It was going to make him famous. Well, guess what? It hasn't made him famous, but it's made him infamous. And here's why. He goes out to the scene and takes over the investigation from the Waco Police Department, which is unheard of. Unheard of. They were getting ready to arrest 10 to 15 people that they had probable cause on. They were going to release the other 150 or so people that were out there, put them on buses. They had their information. And Waco Police Department, who had complete control of that situation, who had all of the crime scene investigators in place, they were scooted aside by Mr. Reyna and his blind ambition, and basically told that we're going to arrest all 177 of them, all 177. They sit there zip-tied, you know, without water to drink, some of them, for a long time, and there we go. That was the start of it right there. Now, fast forward, here we are coming up on 3 years, and at the end of last year, he's indicted 154 of the bikers, that of the 177 he arrested, 154. And guess what? Cost about $1 million to get that first case ready for trial. Jake Carazal, you're familiar with that. Another $539,000 for security during that 4-week trial. And just as many people had predicted, after all that money and 2.5 years of getting that case ready for trial, it's a mistrial. And they never could get more than 6 people to agree to a conviction at any point in time. So it's a mistrial. So here we are, as we sit right here today. We got 154 cases pending, 177 fill-in-the-blank affidavits at arrest, and then 154 fill-in-the-blank indictments. And ladies and gentlemen, I would just say this is not Romania. This is not North Korea. We don't arrest people and treat people like that in this country. We deal with what we call in this country the United States Constitution. And Mr. Reyna and his group, what they need to do is pull that out and read it. You can get them all over town. Here it is right here. It doesn't take that long to read it. Just pull that Constitution out and read it and find out all the rights that were violated of good people on that particular day. I'm not saying at this point in time that there aren't some people, and I've had many people who are associated with motorcycle clubs tell me there are some that should have been arrested. But I will tell you this right now, if elected, I will get the 6 to 8 of the best criminal law minds and investigators, and we will look over every one of those cases and determine which ones should go forward. And apparently, Mr. Reyna has taken my advice, and I guess he's kind of done that himself, although he's not saying that that's the reason he did it. Last week, you all saw where 20 were dismissed, and you all saw where Mr. Reyna said it had nothing to do with anything political. Nothing to do with political. It was all about justice. I've got justice in my bones, justice in my heart, justice in my soul. Come on. 3 years, you had some 20 people that have been looking down the barrel of a first-degree felony for 3 years, and you come up here 2 weeks before election where somebody's actually calling you out for what you are and who you are, and you have the gall to stand up in front of a television camera and tell them, oh, hey, had nothing to do with politics, it's all justice. Can you all believe that? That's unbelievable. And you all know that. Even more concerning, because of his malfeasance and mishandling of those cases are the 100, is my last count, and I've seen in the last few days 122 civil cases that are pending in Austin, Texas. That's, I mean, if those cases start hitting down there, and those are civil rights cases, that's going to make defending all these cases here, which if you do the math and you try 150 or even 100 cases, you're talking about $20 million that comes out of the taxpayer's till. And the taxpayer's going to be responsible for it. If those cases start hitting down in Austin, it could be hundreds of millions of dollars, all because of one thing, because somebody went out and didn't do their job on that day. They decided to do the police department's job. Told the feds, hey, y'all go on and leave. Told the police department, hey, I got it, arrest all of them. He's actually got a police jacket on that day. On the back of it says McLennan County DA. If he wants to be a police officer, well, if you all do what I'm asking you to do, maybe he can go join the police department here in January of 2019, if they'll have it. So in conclusion, it's my position that I will bring professionalism back to the district attorney's office without a political agenda. The next thing and the last thing I want to visit with you about is this justice for sale, which is even more concerning. If you can get anything worse than running out and arresting 177 people with fill-in-the-blank affidavits and $1 million bonds on every one of them. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you that justice is for sale and has been since Abel Reyna took office in Waco in McLennan County 7 years ago. Favors for friends and contributors. When a political official betrays his oath of office and betrays the public's trust by giving special favors to friends and political contributors, then there's only one word to describe that person. And you can look right at Abel Reyna and say, you are corrupt. You are those type of favors to people who are donors and friends of yours is nothing but criminal conduct. Period. That's the way it is. Now, he had a former first assistant who was his main guy, Greg Davis, a well-known, honest guy who's well-known as a good prosecutor all over the county and all over this state. And Mr. Davis resigned over Mr. Abel Reyna's lack of ethics. And in doing so, in these motions that have been before the court, where all of a sudden Mr. Reyna will go in and admit that he needs to be recused, or now last week dismisses these cases. He's doing that so that he doesn't have Greg Davis get on the witness stand and tell what's been going on with his favoritism. He's doing that so that his 20-year legal assistant doesn't get on the witness stand and tell how many cases have been dismissed for money or for donations. He's doing so because other favoritism that has come to light through other sworn affidavits has come to light. And guess who doesn't want to get on the witness stand and raise their right hand and be sworn in? Abel Reyna. He cannot get sworn in. So that's what happened with his actions last week. But just a couple of things about Greg Davis's affidavit. Number one is a man by the name of Donald Sharp, big supporter of Reyna's campaign, contributor to Mr. Reyna. He's arrested for DWI 2 times the legal limit, and because he's a donor and a friend, case dismissed. Number 2, and I'm just going through 2 of the 6 in Mr. Davis's affidavit, and by the way, I think there are many, many more than 6. But there's a lady named Kim Falcone, who is the wife of a prominent doctor and friend of Mr. Reyna's wife, arrested for DWI. Case dismissed. A contribution was made to Mr. Reyna after the case was dismissed. Now, I'll ask you, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you all in here, if you get caught with, if you get pulled over for DWI, would it get that same treatment? 2 times the legal limit, case dismissed? I don't think any of you are going to get that. I don't think I am. I don't think the majority of the public, the majority of the people that own that law firm, that pay Mr. Reyna's salary, are going to get that. So that's what Greg Davis calls a 2-tiered justice system. And when you've got that, ladies and gentlemen, what you've got is you don't have a democracy. You don't have free people exercising the democracy under this wonderful Constitution. What you've got is an authoritarian regime. And that's why, in my opinion, he should be removed. And you know what his response was to Greg Davis? When Greg Davis said, hey, we can't have this 2-tiered justice system. We can't have it. It's not right. Those cases should be prosecuted. Abel Reyna walks in there and, just like you'd see in some Godfather movie, tells Greg Davis, never get in my effing business again. And I'm telling you, that's right out of the Goodfellas movie. That's right out of the Godfather, and that has no place in our district attorney's office. And shortly after that, Greg Davis realized he couldn't work for a guy like that, and he resigned. The other thing we've got to be concerned about, and what many people have talked about, including his 20-year legal assistant and secretary, he's still under FBI investigation. Everybody knows that. The FBI doesn't come in and do anything during an election. That's just the way they work. They work on their own time frame. But everybody will tell you, once the FBI gets on you and they start looking at you, they don't get off. And they're not off right now. They're looking at everything that's going on. Mr. Reyna doesn't know who's wired up, what officers are wired up. He is under investigation by the FBI. That's our district attorney. That's a head, an elected official, and is charged with running our law firm. So in conclusion, I'll tell you this, I'll bring honesty and integrity back to the district attorney's office without favoritism. As your district attorney, everyone will get treated the same. Just like my dad told me years ago when he was in his Justice of the Peace office. And he kept doing that all the way through his 40 years service to this county. That is, if you make one move to show favoritism to a friend or a donor, you are through. Your integrity is compromised and you cannot be a public servant. And I pledge to you right now, that will never happen under a Barry Johnson District Attorney administration. So again, I rest my case, and I'll let you as the jurors/voters make the decision about Barry Johnson. And I'll just tell you, I ask today for your support, for your vote, and for your prayers. Thank you very much. Thank you all for having us out here. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I appreciate it. I want to introduce now someone else. Oh, good. I get to do questions now. So I thought we were going to do that at the end of the deal. But anybody got any questions for me? Yes, sir.
These dismissals that came about last week.
Yes, sir.
The language was that probable cause remains. You know,
right.
In other words, they've been denied their day in court for going on 3 years now.
Right.
You get a dismissal, but you can't get it expunged from your record because probable cause remains. Okay. If you win the election, will you revisit those cases and change that language?
I will revisit every case that's there, all 154. If I determine that there's not probable cause to arrest those people, then I'll make that determination, and that probable cause language will be removed. But and that's my yes, you are. On the other hand, if I look at it, and I want y'all to know this, and I told Mr. Moss this, and I've told a lot of you this, I haven't seen those cases. I haven't seen the evidence. I think I know from what's gone on the last few months, and from what I've seen since May the 17th of 2015, what's going on. there are some people that need to be prosecuted, and many of you have told me, yes, there are. You know, there's about 1% of the folks out there that need to be prosecuted. And and that's what the Waco PD, they were investigating that as a murder case, which is what it should have been investigated as before Reyna came in and called them off. But I'll tell you this, I do pledge to you that every one of those 154 cases, even the ones that have been dismissed with that language in the settlement agreement or the dismissal motion, they will all be reviewed thoroughly by myself and my staff, and we will decide which ones go forward, which ones need to be prosecuted, which ones should be dismissed, and we will handle it from there. So I want to make clear that I haven't seen any of the cases, any of the evidence, but I guarantee I'll look at all of them very closely. So thank you for your question.
Mr. Johnson. You're not the only one that hasn't seen much evidence in those cases. I don't think the DA's office has seen a lot. Judging by the case they put on and the testimony that they elicited from police officers, it appears there's a little feud going on. And I wonder, do you think that your election might kind of smooth the waters out where you can get that information to actually prosecute the perpetrators of that violence out there at Twin Peaks?
I thank you so much for that question, and I think it's a good question. And I think that that's what needs to happen. You know, we need some new eyes, some fresh eyes, somebody in there with some honesty and integrity. You know, that's what has to happen. I mean, we've got to be able to get the friction out of the way and look at those cases. And if there's a group of people that, because of their actions, have, you know, made us all be, have caused us all to be looked at through rose-colored glasses, or a lot of the good veterans and good people in this room to be looked at through rose-colored glasses, hey, we need to get to the bottom of it. And I think my opponent knows that, and that he told the truth when those cases were dismissed, and that is he made a horrible mistake and apologized for his mistake. Well, then he'd be telling the truth. Instead, he wants to come up there and say, no, I'm all about justice. It has nothing to do with politics. Well, he continues to lie. But you're right, that friction, sir, needs to be erased between the law enforcement, the different law enforcement agencies. That's something and I'll just be honest with you, right? I've never owned a motorcycle, never been in a motorcycle club. Always wanted one when I was young, like we all did. You know, my parents just said, if we ever find you on one, you'll wish you were in a wreck. But I'll just tell you this, that constitutional rights must be observed, whether you're dealing with a motorcycle club or whether you're dealing with another club, you know, that may, say the South Waco Redneck Club where I grew up, where, hey, everybody from South Waco is meet and use switchblades. Whatever it is, sir, you're exactly right. The constitutional provisions that protect us all have to be looked at. And I'll be here the rest of the day. And in fact, Mr. Moss and some of them have told me that I could even join the American Legion since I brought my Marine Corps discharge papers along with me. Even though I told some of you all before the meeting that when they wouldn't let me fly because I couldn't see, they've got these restrictions that if you can't see real good, they won't let you fly around in a $60 million plane. So, but I do have my discharge papers here, and even if I can't get in the American Legion, Mr. Moss says I can get in the AMVET, and that's what I intend to do, and I look forward to being out here with you all on many Friday nights and having a good time with you. So thank you all again for your time and attention. Now I want to introduce